Hey, it's Jillian. We are going to talk about proportions. Proportions are something you are going to deal with plenty in math in high school. So, how do we do all of this? Well, what is a proportion in the first place? A proportion is two fractions with an equal sign in between. That's it. Two fractions, equal sign in between, that's a proportion. So if we want to find out what a missing something is, I'm going to do something easier that you don't even need to think about much right here. I'm going to set up a proportion. Okay, so 3 over 5 equals something over 10. Well, let's see. 5 times what is 10? 2. So if I multiply this by 2, I multiply this by 2, so x equals 6. Okay? But sometimes it's not as straightforward as that, and you have to use the laws of arithmetic to solve your problem. So let's do that here. What are the rules? Well, when you have a proportion or two fractions separated by an equal sign, you can cross multiply. So let's do that. 4 top times the other bottom is 4x. And this top times the other bottom is 90. Now you know if 4 times something is 90, that's the same as saying whatever that something is 90 over 4. And I'm going to show that right over here to prove it to you. If you have 2 times 3 is 6, 6, isn't it true that if you bring this over here, 2 equals 6 over 3? See? If it's multiplied here, when it comes over to the other side, it's divided in order for it to still be a true statement, in order for this side to still equal this side. Okay? So when you have something times something equals something else, if you bring one of them over, when you bring it over, it's divided if here it's multiplied. If this was divided, when you bring it over, it would be multiplied. If it's multiplied, when you bring it over, it's divided. So what is this? Well, first of all, can we reduce this fraction? I think so. You know, if anything ends in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, it's divisible by 2. So let's cut this in half. That's 45. And let's cut that in half. Yeah, you can't reduce anymore. You know 2 doesn't go into anything that ends in a 5 evenly. And that's the answer. Now I want to show you something. Here you can see I have written equivalent proportions. So what have I done? Well, the difference between this and this, see if you can find it. What's the difference between this and this proportion? Well, what I've done is I have swapped these numbers. And you can swap numbers on the diagonal and things will still be equal. You can also totally flip fractions and they will still be equal. I'll show you what I mean. If you have here, first let's do the flip one. If you have 1 over 3 equals 2 over 6, right? Double this, they're equivalent fractions. We'll flip them both. Isn't 3 over 1 equal to 6 over 2? Yeah. So you can flip, when you have a proportion, you can flip them both sides, and it still is a true statement. As well, let's swap on the cross here. So if you have 3 over 7 equals 6 over 14. Again, I've doubled both. Let's see if I swap these, if these fractions are still equivalent. So I'm going to put 14 up here, and I'm going to put 3 down here. Well, 7 goes into 14 how many times? 2. 3 goes into 6 how many times? 2. See? It works. So these are some tricks and tips of ways in which you can solve proportions, and you'll be happy that I've mentioned this because later when questions are more difficult and you're looking to solve problems, you'll be happy that you already know how to do all of these proportions.